Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing alright tonight. We have a new router, so hopefully that router does a hell of a lot better than the last router. So there's that. Also, shout out, let me check my volume first before I go full throttle into the show. By the way, guys, I want to thank everyone who helps the show. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, I'm looking. It looks weird. Let's move the position. I want to thank everyone who helps and assists the show, whether that's Patreon, whether that's PayPal, or whether that's the new donation system that I have here. My channel's been demonetized, so the little link at the bottom allows for donations through something other than Super Chat. It's a Super Chat alternative. Depending upon the amount, there'll be a little icon that jumps up and dances, a little Star Trek icon that jumps up. So there's that. I want to announce the winner of the t-shirt from last week. So usually I contact the person, but I get their permission before I announce it. That's why I don't necessarily announce it on the day of. There's some people who say, "Oh, dude, don't give my name out." And so I tend to respect the people who say, "Dude, don't give my name out." Maggie Battles. She won the t-shirt for this week. Send your suggestions in for the show that we're going to do on Friday. Now, just to give a recap, I'm sorry, I know some people hate this when they're like, "Dude, I just want you to do the show." I still have to give recaps. Send in your suggestions for the show on Wednesday. So August is Patron Appreciation Month, and essentially people who are patrons, get to choose. A, they get their name in a list for a t-shirt, and B, they also get to pick a topic. And on Friday at 5 p.m., we'll essentially choose a topic, and we go from there. Just because the main topic may not get chosen doesn't necessarily mean we won't end up talking about other stuff. So the show, by the way, the show for Patreon is after that show. It's unlisted and it's put in purely and only for patrons. So I've been looking out, trying to find things that I can do for patrons. My wife came up with that idea, so I thought that was an awesome idea. All right, so let's get to the news. On his way to rekindling the Ottoman Empire, the glory and the magnificence of the Ottoman Empire, Erdogan stumped his toe on an economic crisis. Not just an economic crisis, a major economic crisis. The lira, their currency, is in free fall. Now, how did this come about? How did this guy, who is strolling his way to absolute power in the government itself, how on earth did he come about this crisis? I'm going to give you some details on how bad it is, but Jesus Christ, just sign me in. You know, I hate it when you sign into an account. It gives you like 20 different things. Just to put it in perspective, though, or just to give you a summary, Donald Trump, out of the blue, doubled the tariffs that were on imports of aluminum and steel from Turkey. Now, this is somewhat of a biting thing because Turkey has relatively high steel exports to the United States. Now, the reason it bites is because companies in Turkey is essentially selling those things to the United States. The United States in this case says, yeah, we're no longer accepting your things, or we're accepting them, but we're going to accept them, and it's going to be 50% more expensive to do business. Did I say that right? I think I said that right. Yeah, Turkey exports 50% more expensive to do business. This ends up constricting their economy in a significant way. Now, the wild part about this is, just on news of this, their currency went into free fall. They've been able to stabilize the currency, but they've stabilized the currency at like 50% less than what the currency was valued. You can imagine that if you needed to buy things and your currency is taking a hit by that degree, it's going to hurt your wallet. What happens if tomorrow your life became 50% more expensive, the stuff that you buy. Now, the reason Trump did this is because Erdogan is holding a Christian pastor by the name of Andrew Brunson. Now, Trump says let him go. He's been in prison for the past 2 years in a Turkish prison. He's been moved to house arrest. The United States says that's insufficient. That's insufficient. Now, why is this guy being held in a Turkish prison? Why is Erdogan keeping this guy locked up in this way? Now, the reason Erdogan is keeping him locked up is because Erdogan believes that he has something to do with the coup attempt that took place, I believe it was a year ago. Do you remember that? People came out of their houses. They were like standing on the tanks and everything else. Erdogan has over 1,000 people in prison related to that. This guy being one of them. Now, Erdogan there's a gentleman in the United States that he wants deported to Turkey. The United States has said, no, we're not doing that. And to be honest, there's no way to know what part of this is paranoia and what part of this is true. Trump has said, let him go. Look, I don't know if Trump is saying let him go because the guy is innocent. I don't know if Trump is saying let him go because he wants to beef up his bona fides with his Christian base. No clue. What I can give you is the politics of this. Donald Trump is saying let him go. Erdogan is essentially saying no. And courts are essentially putting this guy through the court system. Erdogan has, for all intents and purposes, near absolute power in Turkey. So anything that takes place in Turkey at this point is his fault. Now, Erdogan has come back in response to what Trump has said, these tariffs that Trump has put on their products, to essentially boycotting electronics. He said, we are going to boycott electronics. We're not going to take this lying down. We're going to boycott electronics. He also said, take your dollars out and transfer them in to lira. I think he made the point of taking them out of your pillowcase and transfer them into your own currency. Now, the reason for this is because what he comes to realize is that there's a trade disparity. Think of it this way. If Turkey is exchanging in his own currency, there's no issue because Turkey can always print more Turkish dollars or liras. If Turkey is exchanging in American currency, well, that's a problem because Turkey can't print American dollars. And if Turkey has to come up with that money, Turkey has to come up with that money somehow, meaning it creates a trade surplus or a disparity in the amount of currency. So it's like, I think every dollar was like $1 equal to like 8 Turkish dollars or 6 Turkish dollars. I'm going to give the specifics, but I'm trying to give you this idea of the disparity or the hit that Turkey has taken almost overnight. And when you look at it over the course of the year, it gets even more dramatic. Their currency has lost like 50% of its value. It's amazing. So let's take a look at this. And I want to talk a little bit more about political implications. Because Turkey and the United States are NATO nations. We're supposed to be buddies. Fucking having a trade war. We've gotten to the point where because we use sanctions so much, we think sanctions are normal. Sanctions are not normal. Sanctions are economic warfare. And I think these countries are beginning to wake up to the fact that the way America interacts with them is not as equal partners. It's do what we say or else. And in this case, the United States has been using this or else all across the world. And the rest of the world is getting leery of it. Russia has come out saying this is economic warfare. Turkey has come out saying this is economic warfare. And people who are supposed to be our friends, who are supposed to be our allies, we're hitting with sanctions. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Let's look at the story. So this is the Christian pastor, Andrew Brunson. Now, again, he had been in a Turkish prison for 2 years. Donald Trump is in negotiations. Well, the United States is in negotiations trying to get him out. Turkey has refused, has put him on house arrest. Trump ups sanctions 50%. So, just so we're clear, The American pastor standing trial on Turkey on terrorism charges has appealed again to Turkish courts for release from house arrest to lift the travel ban, his lawyer told Reuters. He wants to come home. Relations between two NATO allies have spiraled into full-blown crisis over the trial of Christian pastor Andrew Brunson, who was held for 21 months on a Turkish prison. Oh God, that has to be horrible. Turkish prison. Until the transfer to house arrest last month. A move Washington dismissed as, I love this, insufficient. I love that. All right, let's jump to this one. In fact, let's go to this one first, because we need a little bit more context. All right, right here. How long before Trump's tariffs are likened to an economic warfare? I don't want to read this entire article. I just want to read a part of this to get it. Trump's unexpected double steel tariffs 50% and on Turkish aluminum imports 20%. Doubled steel tariffs to 50% and Turkish aluminum imports to 20%. The action was taken after talks broke down over the release of an American pastor named Andrew Brunson, who is being accused of anti-government espionage and terrorism. Steel is a top 10 export for Turkey, accounting for nearly 8% of its foreign trade balance. The existing tariffs had already cut Turkey's steel exports to the United States by 56%, just below 500,000 tons between January and May. The reduction led to 5% contraction in Turkey's overall steel trade in the same period. The United States used to be Turkey's top steel market, not anymore. Just by virtue of us being a massive economy, if you want to sell to us, well, now you have a tariff or tax on steel coming into this country. That means you're going to have to pay extra to do business with us. Trump has doubled that, meaning this number, they may contract that much more if they're still trying to do business with us. So this has been, so right here. This is independent. Turkey's descent into economic crisis roiled global markets on Monday. The lira slumped to as low as 7.9 to the dollar on Sunday, down from 6.4 at the end of last week when the United States doubled steel tariffs. On Monday morning, the Turkish currency was still trading only at 6.84, more than 25% lower than the 7 day earlier, and around 45% down since the start of the year. Their currency has dropped 45% since January. Think about that. If you were 45% poor, you didn't do squat, you didn't do anything. Money was in your wallet. Let's say you just left your wallet. You come back and you're 45% poor. Same amount in your bank account, same amount of everything else, but everything else costs 45% more. The country's emergency contributed to the punishment of Asian shares overnight. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong lost 1.5%. Tokyo Nikkei, okay, this is getting to the weeds. Investors remain fearful on Monday of the Turkish lira precipitous plunge, and the concerns that a financial crisis in the country would ripple through the rest of Europe, keeping the markets in the red, said Connor Campbell, financial analyst at Spreadfast. All right, and one last point. Erdogan's response. Erdogan could be a little flamboyant. And his response has been essentially to try to protect the currency, of course. Why wouldn't he? Now, the thing is, his plan for this is to retaliate. And his retaliation is, don't buy iPhones. Like, essentially, the thought is, don't buy American technology. If they're going to use this economic warfare on us, A, turning your dollars, meaning use our currency if you're going to do anything, because at the end of the day, we can make all the liras that we want. And B, don't buy their stuff. Boycott their products. Don't give them cash. Don't buy their money. Don't buy any of that stuff. If they're going to do this to us. That's the way he's looking at it. This is America's fault. We wouldn't have this trouble if America didn't do X. Look, he may be right. I don't know. This gets into the weeds for me, and I would have to bring somebody on to get a little bit more into the financial part of this because I don't fully understand all the financials. What I can say is he is pissed off, of course, and their currency is taking a magnificent hit. Definitely could say that. It's pretty straightforward. The items and the stuff in that country gets more expensive. The question to this is, what does this mean from the standpoint of us and Turkey, seeing as both were NATO nations? I mean, it's almost as if Trump was put in office to rip down world order. And if nothing else, that is what he's doing. So I got to be honest, I can't get into all of the nuts and bolts from the standpoint of the economics of it because I don't fully understand all of the details of the economics. What I do know is other countries have lost confidence when Donald Trump put those sanctions on. Other countries balked at this, or the financial markets balked at this. And I don't mean balked in a bad way. I just mean balked from the sense of their currency started to take a hit, even more so as the sanctions increase. I don't know if the pastor had anything to do with it. I have no clue. Erdogan has been going on witch hunts. I have no idea. It is very possible, at the same token, that Donald Trump is doing this to beef up his own bona fides with his Christian elements of his base. That is also possible. There is no skin off of his back to do this. So why wouldn't he do it if it's going to get him some political points? This story is weird to me because it's dealing with international politics and it's dealing with people who are supposed to be allies for us. And yet we're going after allies with a certain amount of viciousness. He calls this backstabbing, meaning Erdogan. Erdogan looks at this as being warfare because guess what? It is warfare. Sanctions is a tool of war. Sanctions is not something that you do to friends of yours. Sanctions is something that you do to enemies. And the idea that we're using this against allies is a little weird, to say the least. To say the least. I'm putting all the articles at the bottom so you can see it for yourself. This is somewhat of a synthesis of what is in these articles. I hope I did it justice. Let's see who's here. Creative experiments. Richard Wolff describes the situation simply. Trump is just doing things against sport. Yes, agreed. Military spending, he doesn't. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, but these are tools of war. These are not tools of just policy. Donald Trump is using what's considered to be tools of war in order to extort behavior out of certain groups. Like, so, wrapping Turkey on the knuckles in this case. This belief that Turkey might have had something to do in Syria. The sanctions against Russia, the sanctions against Europe, the sanctions against Iran. Like, if you notice, at a certain point, you're sanctioning the entire world. And at some point, the entire world is going to get sick of that. And the entire world is going to start doing things to kind of make an end run around you, seeing as you're a single entity. Even if you're the largest market, fair enough. And at this point, I don't think we're the largest market. But even though we're a large consumer nation, it doesn't mean that other countries can't reorganize themselves if it becomes a pain in the ass that the United States has the status that we have. You need to be very careful of using power in this way. You need to be very careful in using power in this way. Tariffs are not sanctions. There are countries that put no, but he's using them as sanctions. Understand, under normal circumstances, yeah, you use tariffs as this kind of tool, to kind of balance things out. But he's not using them in this way. I mean, Donald Trump is using tariffs to punish. Keep in mind, he's putting a 50%, he's upping tariffs by 50%, not sanctions, tariffs. He's using them as sanctions for all intents and purposes. I hope that makes sense. Like, this is not used from the standpoint of just, this is apolitical and we're just doing this to balance out trade. He's doing this to extort behavior. And let me make sure I'm right. I don't want to talk on my ass on this. But let's see. Yeah, he increased tariffs by 50%. That's a tariff. But for all intents and purposes, he's wielding them like sanctions. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Big power comes with great responsibility. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I really hope that makes sense. The United States used to use tariffs before. We used to pay for the country using tariffs. So don't misunderstand me. That's something that we've used in the past. That's not something that's mind blowing. We have tariffs now, if I'm not mistaken, on light vehicles. So that's something that we've always had. I think the weird part about this is he's not using sanctions against Turkey. And just so I'm clear, he's not using sanctions. He's using tariffs as if they were sanctions. Meaning he's using something that's supposed to be somewhat apolitical tool in order to kind of balance out trade in the country as political weapons. He's not calling it a sanction, but he might as well call it a sanction. All of these are at the bottom, guys. I'm going to end this. I don't want this one to go too long. My wife is not here, and so I have doggy duty. I'm sorry, I'm just making sure I'm not wrong on this. Yeah, Donald Trump unexpectedly double steel tariffs to 50%. He's using tariffs as if they were sanctions. These are political weapons. I hope that makes sense. Just because he's not calling it a sanction doesn't necessarily mean it's not a sanction. All right, I'm going to end this. Yeah, guys, I'm going to have additional videos. I'm going to be here throughout the night. So, somebody gave something. I'm going to say, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Give me 1 second, because somebody Erdogan, more like lost. Look, from the standpoint of the financial thing, I don't think Europe wants Turkey going bust. I don't think anybody wants Turkey going bust. What comes out of countries when you have chaos from financial distress? And is that really what you want from the standpoint of a NATO ally? Just saying. I sent out a request to a gentleman who was, I guess, an economist, because I wanted an explanation from a more technical standpoint about what's going on that can be put into human terms. I can explain a general idea of what's taking place, but I want somebody to be able to go into specifics. But in a nutshell, Erdogan is taking all power in the country. Erdogan has been prosecuting people. I think it's like 1,000 people for the coup attempt. One of the guys that he's prosecuting is an American pastor, a Christian pastor. Donald Trump wants the guy released. Erdogan has refused, and for the most part, that guy's been processed through the courts. He's been in prison for 2 years. They pulled him out of prison. They put him in house arrest. America said that was insufficient. That wasn't enough. Let him go. Trump double tariffs to put pressure, not sanctions, tariffs to put pressure. At this point, tariffs are being used as political weapons in order to try to compel behavior. You might as well call them sanctions, because they're sanctions for all intents and purposes. The currency in the country has gone in free fall, and Turkey has decided to boycott American products in response. Hey, short, sweet, straightforward. Yeah, I'll leave it here. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. Of course, you can always support through Patreon. And Erdogan, thank you very much. I think that's Baltazar, but I can't be certain. Either way, thank you very much for the support. Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys in like 20 minutes or so after I walk the dogs. Bye-bye.